just got the news, and normally I don't it's easy to just kind of keep my quiet most of the time and only weigh in when something major drops and I want to say something. But some incredibly shitty things have been going on, really deeply crappy, and it got me to the point in which I had to break silence on this channel and actually come out and say something. And you're going to see that nothing is really what it appears as I go over this, but late night comedian Stephen Colbert was let loose despite the fact that he was getting incredibly good ratings as a company, which didn't make sense to us at all. But then it was Jimmy Kimmel as well and everything. They supposedly did a comments made about Charlie Kirk, but I think that is just ultimately the smoke screen, in this massacre that we've seen. News is coming out that the big four media companies that control about 80% of what we get to read, watch, and listen to, are basically pushing and lobbying the FCC pretty heavily to scrap what's left of their consolidation limits and merger limits, being extra shitty, extra awful of them, and I condemn them for this very vehemently. They already control about 80%, if not more, at this point. Now that analysis was done back when it was 60, when it was 6 companies. I mean, now God knows how consolidated they are now. So it's probably more than 80. And the thing is that they control that much of it, and they keep saying it's a very competitive, landscape, but it isn't really. If you look at who owns most of the companies that produce the content you watch, it all filters back to 4 big umbrella corporations that, control all the superficial appearance of there being, a competitive landscape, when in reality it's all owned by the same, 4 parties that do a lot to obscure the fact that it is them, at the core of all of it. But it's true. There are only about 4 of them, and they control most of what the content we get to consume in the first place is at all. And what's been going on is that, FCC chairman Brendan Carr has been threatening them and everything, to block mergers and everything, and using indirect pressure to basically get the media companies to dance to the tune of the Trump administration and everything. So, if they don't do what Brendan Carr wants, he won't approve their mergers. And so these sniveling fucks don't really care about, your ratings as a late night host. They're going to do what they're going to do in order to try to push this consolidation through at everything. And the media is already far too consolidated. It's a joke. They but they want to take it further than this. I mean, just a couple of years back, you remember the Sinclair clips? I mean, if you don't recall, back when the Sinclair mergers hit, and they bought up all those local media hosts, it produced this, rather ironic clip, which I have no problem showing you and everything, but just, oh god, his video is not available anymore. What the hell? Okay. Okay, it's still there.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about the trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and attempt to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 And all I could think when I saw that clip is this kind of media consolidation is extremely dangerous to our democracy. Irony for you. But the FCC and everything, if you're wondering why everybody's been behaving extra shitty, is that our media companies continue to respond to authoritarianism by being feckless little shit weasels. And the reason they're doing it is the ABC, and CBS bribery, have been making bribery payments to our mad idiot king, when most recently exemplified by FCC's firing of Jimmy Kimmel because he gave Republicans a sad. Who could have imagined the free speech, anti-cancel culture folks were liars? Like, this has been mentioned, but one of the main reasons our media networks are being extra feckless and shitty on free speech is because they're lobbying the Trump administration to approve a new wave of harmful media consolidation, which will lead to even more of the fecklessness we're seeing now. The Ellison family needed the Trump FCC approval for its plan to merge Paramount, Skydance, CNN, Time Warner, CBS, Barry Wist, Free Press, and TikTok into one giant right-wing piece of shit, but ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox have also begun lobbying the Trump FCC to eliminate some of the last remaining consolidation limits that Trump hasn't killed yet, rules prohibiting the big four networks from merging further. Their argument and filings at the agency has generally been that the modern media space is just so gosh darn competitive that it makes no sense to worry about media consolidation limits. That's gibberish, in part because, as you can see everywhere you look, there are real and obvious harms in letting media giant telecoms and media companies consolidate under the ownership of morally repugnant oligarchs. It harms the diversity of media coverage, it harms competition, and it generally results in a monolithic, shittier culture dominated by white, male, C-tier podcasting comedians, and the consolidated power structure, if you hadn't noticed, is more easily exploited by authoritarian zealots. At the same time, the big four networks are pushing to merge what's left of our local broadcasters are desperately trying to consolidate as well. The right-wing owner of many ABC networks that was first to fold under threats from the FCC boss Brendan Carr, Nexstar, who also owns the feckless DC gossip rag The Hill, is currently looking for FCC approval for their next $6.2 billion merger with Tenga. After this deal approves, they strongly suspect Nexstar will merge with Sinclair Broadcasting, another right-wing company that has spent decades dressing up propaganda as local news, made famous by this John Oliver segment or this 7-year-old Deadspin video. The goal really is to consolidate the national media as what's left of local broadcast news, unquote, under the ownership of one right-wing company. These companies get to dominate local and national media, and Republicans get to leverage that power to spread party propaganda and to censor critics. It's quite the unholy symbiosis. And that's just the start. I suspect ultimately that's the AI hype bubble pops. The media, tech, and telecom companies will look to unprecedented cost consolidation across industries to drive tax breaks and additional brief stock bumps, as authoritarians are going to exploit all of it to centralize their information warfare and propaganda efforts to quell public backlash to shitty, unpopular policies. Which leads me to this video's point, and it's pitched. We need to elect a government at this point and throw the bums that are currently in there out. And by the way, that includes the bums in my own party, the Democratic Party, who, have gone along with this or behaved in a completely feckless manner about it and just kind of laid over and died about it. And we need to get people that are committed ultimately to trust busting. What we need to do is trust bust the media. See, they want to consolidate. We need to do the opposite. We need to get somebody to come in and to come into power and break the media giants up into thousands of pieces, or at least 50. Obviously, it was a little bit of an exaggeration, but let's break the big four up. Let's make them smaller and break them back down into manageable size, and then really establish the limits so that and harden the limits so that this doesn't happen again. I found it incredibly ironic watching that Sinclair clip, because it seems more than obvious to me that, this kind of media consolidation is extremely dangerous to our democracy. It's how we get authoritarianism. It's how we move towards, the consolidation of basically, one person making all the decisions in our nation. There is supposed to be a balance of power. This is a direct threat to it. We need to fight back.